Hi, I'm Nisha DeGaring, host of Good Things Utah, and I've been a longtime supporter of Todd's Belief Cast. I hope you find inspiration in the courageous stories shared by the amazing people Todd features on his show. The guests serve as shoulders for us to stand on, allowing us to see a little further and cultivate belief in oneself. Remember, you have the dignity and power to change. I encourage you to keep striving and believing in yourself. Enjoy today's podcast.
I want to take a moment to express my heartfelt gratitude to the incredible sponsors of the BeliefCast podcast. First, Craig from Craig Swap & Associates. If you need an attorney, he's your guy. Trustworthy, compassionate, always there when you need him most. Next, Wasatch Recovery, the greatest university on the planet, transforming lives one day at a time. Sandy from Minky Couture, the creative genius behind the most comfortable blanket you'll ever wrap yourself in. Comfort like no other. The visionaries behind Thread wallets. These wallets redefine style and functionality. Dave Philippi from Micro Plus, pushing the boundaries of nanotechnology and scientific research to bring us cutting-edge supplements for optimal health. The Ralphs and the Debenhams, creators of Mori Nutrition and Calm. Because if you're struggling with sleep, feeling stressed, or can't focus, Calm is your answer. Special thanks to the award-winning pianist Paul Cardall for his beautiful music that brings inspiration to every episode. And finally, Gab Wireless, letting kids be kids and giving parents the peace of mind they deserve. Right now, Gab is offering $25 off any device to new customers with no contract required. That's $25 off any Gab smartphone or smartwatch. Just go to gab.com/belief. That's where you'll get the best deal. That's gabb.com/belief. Thank you to all these amazing sponsors for supporting the BeliefCast podcast and empowering us to continue spreading positivity and inspiration to the world. Welcome back, everybody. This is Todd Sylvester with the Todd Inspires BeliefCast. As always, I want to thank you for being here and tuning in week after week. I want to thank my sponsors for believing in me and supporting this cause. And I'm so grateful for the people that come on here and share their stories. We're so blessed to have people come on and get vulnerable and just, share a portion of their lives with us. And we're always fed and edified. And today's going to be no different. You guys are in for a treat today. Today we have Scott Moore. Scott, thank you for being here.
My pleasure. Thanks for the invitation, man.
Yeah, absolutely. We were supposed to do this last week, but it didn't quite happen. But hey, it happened. Here we are, and it's happening now.
When you live in the realm of the timeless, there's always only now.
Yeah, exactly. Well, hey guys, a little background on Scott. He's an internationally recognized yoga and meditation teacher, author, mentor. He's written 3 acclaimed books. His writings have also been featured in prestigious publications such as Yoga Journal, Mantra Magazine, and the Elephant Journal. He does workshops and retreats and training across the United States. He's got a BA in literature. He's an experienced jazz musician. Wow, I can't wait to hear more about that. He's got a passion for poetry and storytelling. Again, he's this amazing yoga teacher who lives with that kind of philosophy. I can't wait to get to know more, and we're all going to be edified today. So, Scott, I know there's much more that you do, and we're going to get to know that here today. So why don't we start, Scott, with tell us where you grew up and maybe a little bit about your childhood.
I grew up in Utah. I grew up in Orem, Utah.
Okay.
Small little town, Utah. I had a great upbringing, Boy Scouts, and hanging out with a group of friends and being outdoors a lot. I was a musician and started playing piano and clarinet and picked up the saxophone and was always kind of a meditative kind of person. I didn't really thrive in like competitive sports. I started running when I was, a little bit earlier on, but really focused largely on music growing up.
Yeah.
Did a lot of music.
Okay.
Moved to Salt Lake. After college, moved to Korea for a year and studied meditation there while I was also teaching English.
Really?
And then moved to Salt Lake City after that in 2003. opened some yoga studios, and that's really where I started my career as a yoga professional.
Okay. Tell us a little more about the year of meditation in Korea. I'd like to know more about that. That sounds interesting.
You know how it goes after school. You're like, what do I do?
Yeah.
A lot of people have that gap year, and there's this just an opportunity dropped out of nowhere to go and teach English over in Korea. And I'd never been to Asia before.
Right.
And so going over there, the assistant director of the school was a woman in her, about my age. And she kind of checked me out for a while, make sure I was, cool, I guess.
Yeah.
And said, hey, I do this practice. It's a meditation practice that's kind of a mix of Chinese medicine and Korean Buddhism. And it really mixes. You might kind of think of it as like Tai Chi.
Oh, yeah.
It has a lot of energy component to it.
Nice.
And I'd go on the daily to go and meditate for a couple hours every day. And it was a really beautiful, deep introduction to meditation. And
that had to have been really challenging in the beginning, because if you're not, were you used to doing stuff like that, or is this all brand new when you get there?
I meditated
2 hours is a long time.
It's a long time, and it was exciting for me because as a lot of people do, I started my yoga practice and I was really engaged in the physical aspect of it. And I knew there was a contemplative element, but I was also suffering from 2 really bad Achilles injuries at the time. So it was really put my yoga practice on hold, which was a great opportunity to quiet down and do something.
Sure. Yeah.
And to go into such a deeply spiritual, deeply mental place was a fantastic complement to the other kind of, physical part of the practice.
Right.
And also, in addition to what was going on mentally, the energy is a big component of that. In this style, they had 3 main energy centers and really bring some emphasis to those. And to really bring a tangible relationship to that feeling of how energy worked through the body and how mindfulness worked, and then coming back to the United States and teaching from that place was really nice.
I bet.
I had a couple of really beautiful experiences, like in this practice, going with my friend to a monastery where you get to go and live with the monks, and without taking vows, you get to go and do the thing.
Really?
Had some really beautiful experiences that I'll probably remember for the rest of my life doing that kind of stuff.
Oh, I can imagine.
You know how it is. It's like you do something and you go for one thing, like teaching English, right? And then these little things just drop out of nowhere and you end up going on a whole other side bend and things that shape your whole life. I'm sure
you weren't
can relate.
Yeah, you weren't expecting that, but man, I'm so glad that happened and you got to experience that. Yeah, I can't wait to talk a little bit more about this practice of mindfulness and stillness and, being in the moment, that kind of stuff. Yeah. I know yoga is really good at bringing that all together for a person, and not to mention what it does to you physically as well, and all that fun stuff. So did you know, when did you know you wanted to really dedicate your life to yoga?
It was gradual. In fact, when I started yoga, I wasn't really into it,
Okay.
My wife was like, hey, you want to come to yoga with me? And I'm like, well, I'll go with you. But from my very first time there, I recognized there was something happening here. It felt like such a paradox. It was at the gym, right?
Yeah.
And you're not doing a lot of chanting. There wasn't even meditation involved, but it did feel like there was this interesting intersection between something that was physical and kind of intense and this and that versus something that was also quite contemplative, still.
Yeah.
And what happened, I think, is I was curious, right? And started to learn more about it. And the more you learn, the more things come out of the woodwork. In college, I had a professor, and it was a business professor, and he said, he had made $1 bajillion really, really early in life and retired at the age of 30 with again, $1 bajillion in the bank, and decided he would donate his time to teach other people the principles of business. He was really passionate about teaching people business. And he said on day 1 of class, he said, if you're here just to make money, I want to show you where the door is, because that's not what this is about. And he said, but I also want to tell you what the secret of success is. And he said, the formula to succeed is that interest breeds excellence, and excellence breeds opportunities. And I think about that in yoga terms, right? Where I just started to get interested in it.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
And the more interested, you get better at doing a thing because you're doing it. And then, like I said, like these opportunities just drop out of the woodwork because you're doing a thing.
Love that.
I moved back from Korea and I was trying my hand at teaching yoga. And I was thinking about going to grad school or, jumping into what my real job would be. And at first I really wasn't cutting the mustard. I wasn't paying the bills. It was just kind of a fun thing. And this is the early 2000s, really before the yoga industry was a thing,
Yeah.
And nobody was making their living teaching yoga. And I remember one night coming to my class and I was realizing, I was kind of looking at the bottom line saying, look, folks, this teaching yoga is pretty fun, but I might have to go out and get a real job. Right?
I got to pay the bills.
That's exactly it.
Right.
Fortunately, at that time I was young and I didn't have a lot of responsibility, so my bills were pretty minimal, but still. And a woman came up to me after class and she had tears in her eyes and she said, Scott, I've got 4 kids at home under the age of 4 and I need this class just to like live, like you doing what you do helps me do what I do. And I was impacted in part because I didn't know that I was making that kind of an impact on people.
Yeah.
And that it was so necessary. I was a young teacher. I didn't know a lot. I was just doing my best, but apparently, it was making an impact for somebody. And so I dug in a little bit more and getting more gigs and things like that. And eventually figured out how to make this the real job,
Yeah. Wow.
So that's a little bit how that kind of, and then, and that was the beginning of the career. And of course you learn how to manage. And
yeah. Well, it's nice when you realize, you really are making an impact in people's lives.
Yeah.
And again, there's the payment, right? Like, yes, we need to make a living and we got to do all that stuff. But man, when you hear someone say, man, you're making such a difference and I need you to continue this because, it's nice to know that you really are doing something that's, making people be, their best selves, I guess.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks,
So that's awesome.
I appreciate that.
You're involved in a lot of things. I mean, you're passionate about a lot of things, I guess is a better way of saying it. And I mentioned in the, poetry, storytelling, you've written 3 books. Talk about that process too, those kind of things. And, and maybe let our listeners know what these books, why you wrote them and what they're about.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
I really feel like yoga, meditation, I'm an expert at what's called Yoga Nidra, which is a deep form of mindfulness that feels like a guided meditation. And I feel like all of, my experience in Korea and breath work, these are all tools, right? We all have different tools on our tool belt, but the real opportunity is for really people to share themselves with the world, that our greatest gift to the world is the ways in which we love the world. And I happen to love poetry and I love jazz music and I love to write.
Yeah.
I also love yoga and meditation. And so I feel like really I get the privilege and pleasure to share these things that I love with the world. I like the way my brain works too, is to create connections between seemingly disparate things, how does this esoteric philosophy relate to something real and practical in the everyday? And if we can tie in like a pop culture reference or a poetic reference or a jazz reference, then all the better. And here's how it all comes together. And here's a story around the whole thing. You know what I mean? And so you can apply yoga to that. You can apply meditation to that or a concept. But really, I feel, and this is what I really teach when I mentor other people to build their own businesses or to strive for a teaching excellence, is like figure out who you are first, because your business is really just an extension of you.
Of you, yeah. And
stop trying to be like everybody else, but figure out what makes you you and be brave enough to go and share that with the world.
I love that. I love the part where you said knowing who you are, and everything's an extension of that from you. I ask this question to my clients all the time, so I'm going to ask you. I'd love to hear your thoughts, what you say. So if I was to ask you, who are you, Scott? How do you answer that?
Gee, that's a big
Putting you on the spot
but
here.
no, I appreciate that. I mean, that is the question.
Yeah.
The question. And I feel like I'm going to answer the question indirectly, and then I'll get into like the meat of that. But
Great.
I feel like
Yeah.
whether it be science or dance or yoga or music or whatever, we're all asking that. We're all trying to answer that question. What does it mean to be a human being? I like to say that what we're doing in practices like yoga and meditation, we're meeting each other at the intersection of human and being. That we're human and we're messy and we're broken and we got problems, but there's a beauty in that. And there's a part of our being that is already realized. It's already perfect.
Yeah.
Our humanness doesn't understand that as well, but we get glimpses of it all the time. And I think that's what humanness is to kind of like sit in that interesting intersection. Like, oh my gosh, world is falling apart, or I've done all these things in my life, some of good and some of bad. And somehow it's all illuminating me to this extraordinary path of what it means to be human. And what a wild ride,
Right.
And so I don't know. I think I'm just trying to figure out who I am, day in and day out. I know I'm an imperfect being, right? That has problems and issues and opinions and whatever. But I also know fundamentally that what is inside of me is inside of all of us, which is part of the everything, which is rooted fundamentally in compassion. That love is really the essence of all things, and whatever way you want to point to that, through that religion or practices and yoga or meditation, it's all pointing to that thing. So I don't know, I feel if I can just stay true, if I stay connected with those things that I truly love in the world, then I'm going to, number one, have a clear aspect of what I truly am, who I truly am. But it's also the way that I make an impact in the world and to help other people as well by sharing what I love. And I love yoga, love meditation. I love to write, love hanging out with you, Todd.
Yeah. No, thank you. I'm going to share something with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. And I'm going to summarize it. So bear with me here a little bit. So, it's about simplicity. Okay. And I want to hear your thoughts about the importance and the power of simplicity. And if I have this right, and I might be off, so just everyone forgive me, but all the great teachers, try to just simplify things for us, right? So Buddha, I think, had something like 8 virtues or more that basically Buddha said, if you embrace these things, you'll discover enlightenment. But he wanted to break that down to even one, and he called it compassion, right? Confucius, I think, had another, 5 to 13 virtues that if you lived those, you would experience perfect knowledge. And he wanted to simplify that, and he simplified it down to simplicity. Or excuse me, no, not simplicity. Sympathy. Sorry. So sorry. Sympathy. See, I told you I'd butcher this a little bit. So Buddha, compassion; Confucius, sympathy; and then Jesus broke it down to one principle, and he called it love. Yeah. And then it goes on. The way I understand it is how powerful these 3 things are, but yet it's hard to find someone who embodies all 3. And if we would, we would experience just some of the greatest experiences of just being a being, right? I know I butchered that. I hope I'm making some sense.
Absolutely.
What are your thoughts on that?
I don't know. I think you wrap that up in a bow, and I think that's it.
Yeah,
that's it. I think that there's a lot of approaches, a lot of commentary, I say, if you will, on that, the essence of exactly what you said. That the boiling it down to its essence helps us, I think, avoid getting wrapped up in any particular dogma or any of the particulars that make us feel like ultimately would be a distraction to the thread, which is, love, compassion, sympathy, those could be seen as maybe three aspects of the same thing, but ultimately, getting in there, like, and we feel that, when in all aspects of life, if we're holding a baby for the first time and we're having that undeniable, overwhelming sense of love and compassion, like that's the thing, or even if you're doing something, you're the love of the game and you're just so passionate about this basketball game or this thing you do. I mean, you can't tell me that that's not just as beautiful, or that's not just as much part of the essence as anything else,
Right.
I had a yoga teacher tell me that if you explore one thing all the way down to its root, you understand everything. And I'm like, let me take the next decade and unpack that.
Right. Good luck with that one.
Yes. And I think in some of the study I've done, a lot of sages and saints have said a lot of the same thing, whether it's Buddha or the sages in the Vedas and Ayurveda, or in Hindu and yoga text, or whatever, or the different texts in different religions. I think it points often to the essence, kind of going back to the kernel of your question, what is the essence? And the essence is, the essence of all things, of everything, is that we are aware. We're here. We're having this experience of being awareness through the form of a body, through the form of a family, through the form of this life.
Yeah.
But that we are aware fundamentally, and that awareness is part and parcel with compassion. It's one of the same thing.
Yeah.
And we don't have a context for that necessarily, because we're born into this experience as humans with bodies and histories, and time is a thing. And to say like, no, what you are is this thing that's so much more ephemeral and effable than that thing. We need the metaphor of this human experience to kind of give that a context. And this is what I think poetry does so well, is it takes the ineffable and somehow puts a language around it that we can encapsulate. Mary Oliver, I call her Saint Mary because I think she's like this enlightened being, and who's written all this. She has this poem called "The Spirit Likes to Dress Up Like This," and it starts off essentially like, "The spirit likes to dress up like this: 10 fingers, 10 toes, shoulders, and all the rest." And it kind of goes on. It says it needs, this spirit, this body, this thing that is hard to point to. It needs the body as a metaphor to be understood. And I just think that's really profound. And so we do practices, whatever they may be, if it's yoga or basketball or meditation, because I think all of those, the through line and all of that, for me anyway, is to think that everything that anchors you to this moment, right here, right now, is touching on that truth of who we are, being presence. And if we're in love with this thing that we're doing, then we are love incarnate in the form of playing basketball or dancing or running a podcast or teaching yoga.
Yeah. I love that. It reminds me, I'm going to do my best here again, the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali.
Yeah.
I want to hear one of your thoughts on this. I'm going to do my best to remember this. If we are steadfast in our abstentions of thoughts of harm towards any living creature, or to anyone, all living creatures will cease to feel enmity in our presence. He wrote that 2,000 years ago. So basically, for those listening, really what it's saying is, if we are focused, steadfast, in abstaining from thoughts of harm towards any living creature, right, to anyone, right, all those living creatures will cease to have enmity, and enmity is hatred towards us. What are your thoughts on that Yoga Sutras?
I'm impressed with your knowledge of the Yoga Sutras.
Hey, I've got a few little in my, I study a little bit, enough to just get me excited about it.
I mean, right there, that's all you need to know. I mean, that the Yoga Sutras are organized such that, Patanjali said, hey, here's a pathway to yoga. I'm going to give you 8 ways to get there. We're going to go from gross to subtle, like ways you can live your life, the outer observances, the yamas, and then the more subtle inner observances, the niyamas. And let's take that a little bit deeper into physical body, and then to breath work, and then to some, separating myself from the senses, and then getting into meditation to arrive at samadhi, or the sense of the oneness, the being, finding yourself awakened to the truth of being already here in the state of oneness. And that whole sort of organizational flow of awakening to that oneness starts with exactly what you said, Todd, of that, where this thing starts. Rule number 1, and in fact, they don't use the word rules, but these are observances, which is not like a command where you must do this thing, but rather like, if we're looking for oneness, the place to start is the term of ahimsa, or nonviolence. And you could take any of these and just go layers. Yeah. And the first layer is, okay, just not harming somebody. That's an easy way to, I'm not going to throw punches at somebody. Right. And I love what, Gandhi, for example, knew all these principles and grew up, in this spiritual milieu of all of this, and led one of the most powerful social revolutions that perhaps our world may ever know. And Martin Luther King Jr., as he was figuring out how he was going to lead a successful social revolution, really did a lot of study on Gandhi's work, particularly in that realm of nonviolence. And one of the things that Martin Luther King said was, that kind of sums this up beautifully, is like, the true spirit of non-harming somebody is not only the refusal to shoot or to hit a person, but the refusal to hate them. And that's a real change internally. Yeah. And when you think of,
love that,
the bottom, 101 version of non-harming somebody, just stop throwing the punches.
Yeah, don't hit someone.
But the truth or the opportunity in that, and this is why it's the first rule of the whole direction, is when you learn to love somebody, because love is the through line, and it is the single greatest truth in the universe. Yeah. When you're in the space of love, you're in a space of isness, and you cut through all the crap that separates me from you, and I realize that I am no different than you, than me, and the way the 2 different pinky fingers look like 2 different things, but they're all part of some bigger organism, right? Yeah. Likewise, there's a Todd and there's a Scott and there's all of us, and we're all playing our role here. And if I can love you, I can see past the things I don't agree with, in that humanness, and realize, like, what a wild ride we're on. Yeah. What a multi-textured experience this is.
For sure. What struck me, what you just said here, when you said, it's one thing not to maybe physically hurt someone, but it's a whole nother thing to not have that hatred planted in your soul, if you will, that you really just, I'm going to love this person despite if I don't agree with them or whatever. And I'll often tell my clients who are struggling, say, with drugs or alcohol, I'll often tell them, it's one thing to stop doing those things. It's a whole nother thing to not have the desire to do them anymore. Big shift, right? You're talking about that shift, and I think yoga does a really good job at helping people shift, right? It's like, because in the moment, right, that's when you feel enlightened, you feel joy, you feel the peace, you feel the love. I mean, the highest frequencies that we can feel in the moment, right? And typically we're never in the moment because our mind's like, I'm thinking ahead, I'm thinking behind, I'm anxious, I'm depressed, I'm all over the place. And I just love when I see a client get to that space where, I don't drink, or I haven't drank or done drugs in a long time, and guess what? I don't even have the desire to do them anymore. Like it's not even on their radar anymore. So I've noticed with our clients here that yoga is a really good thing at helping them get to that space. Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
I love that. For again, you can look at the many layers on. And I've taught yoga at residential treatment centers for a lot of years, particularly with kids, especially, and one of the things we focus on a lot is like, what is right here, right now? The whole idea of presence, how can you really enjoy presence in Yoga Nidra, which is one of the types of yoga that I really specialize in.
Yeah.
There is sort of a direction of, the whole idea is with Yoga Nidra, and this comes back around to what you were saying, but we're going to learn to disidentify with the old ways that we have previously known ourselves to be. I've known myself as an addict, or I've known myself as this desire to have something, or I've even known myself as the person who drives such and such a car, or who has such, even, anything that I could describe myself in, anything that is not forever and permanent is part of the ego, right?
Yeah.
So if I can learn to first let go of that old identity and pick up my true identity, which is one of awareness, this compassion itself, then that's what we're doing. But it's a little disingenuous to just say, hey, forget that old thing that, just, be present, and there you go. You're welcome.
Yeah.
And instead, what I love about it, it actually says, because we are human and being, we go into the human part, we embrace the human part, because the human is the perfect pointer to the being. It's the metaphor that illuminates the being,
I like that.
You mentioned Confucius. He said, when the finger points to the moon, the idiot's going to look at the finger.
Yeah. And not the moon,
and
right?
not the moon. Yeah. Like, what is it? What is the pointer, right? And so in Yoga Nidra, what I invite people to do is first to welcome, or at least acknowledge the thing that is right there. Instead of trying to push away, I'm not human, I'm not this addiction, I'm not the thing.
Yeah.
Well, actually, let's really take a moment and sit down and actually practice observing it, right? And then Krishnamurti said that our highest intelligence is our ability to observe without assessment, our ability just to kind of hang with a thing.
Yeah.
But then we have to do this thing. So we observe it first, but then we have to point to it, like call it by its name. And it seems so rudimentary, right?
Yeah.
That's an urge, or that's an opinion, or that's anger, or that's an itch, or that's tightness in the body, whatever it is.
Yeah, right.
Just by giving it a name, you're now creating a new relationship with it. Like, I'm the subject who is witnessing an object, a thing. And I start to recognize, like, oh, there's a thing, but I'm not that thing.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the thing experiencing the object.
Thing. Yeah.
And then what happens is through Yoga Nidra is great because through a process of relaxation, I fuzzes out that rigid framework of what I think is me, to the point where I really experience that expansive version of myself. But in that bigger experience that we all have, and whether we're holding a baby or whether we're shooting that final shot at the basketball or skating down the road on our skateboard or whatever, that moment of deep presence, that moment of feeling ourselves, that's being in the being part of ourselves. There's that invitation to go back and re-embrace the human part of it, and go back to the basketball game, go back to the addiction, or go back to the urge, and to relate to it from a place of deep presence and clarity, and respond from a place of compassion, rather than reacting from a place of that egoic self.
Gotcha.
So all the way back to your original thing, like, how does yoga help anything, right? First of all, it puts a wrench in the cogs of that repetitive, reactive sort of thing, and gives me a moment of deep, simple, going back to simplicity, go back to just the simple presence. What are you aware of in this moment?
Yeah.
That's a word I use all the time in my practice. Hey, what are you aware of in this moment? I'm aware of how annoyed I am that you're making me do yoga at 6:30 in the morning.
Right.
And in that awareness, then a simple invitation, how could you respond to become a little more comfortable, a little bit more in ease with yourself? I think one of the most powerful, simple, going back to this idea of boiling it down to the simplicity, simple ways to respond to almost any object is just with a full, deep breath.
Yeah.
And then I put myself in that space of observing with just a little bit less assessment, like Krishnamurti said, so I can go through and Do something, respond rather than react or whatever.
Yeah. Wow. Really well said. Thank you. Speaking of Confucius, James Allen, who wrote the As a Man Thinketh, and I've got his book right here of all of his writings. He's one of my heroes. It's called Mind is the Master, and he's quoting Confucius. I want to read it. It's kind of long, but I want to see what you think about this, Scott, okay?
Thank you.
So James says, Confucius said, the perfecting... Sorry, I just butchered it already.
It's all good.
Tongue-tied. Okay, sorry. Confucius said, the perfecting of one's self is the fundamental base of all progress and all moral development. A maxim as profound and comprehensive as it is simple, practical, and uninvolved, for there is no surer way to knowledge, no better way to help the world than perfecting one's self. Nor is there any nobler work or higher science than that of self-perfection. He who studies how to become faultless, who strives to be pure-hearted, who aims at the possession of a calm, wise, and seeing mind, engages in the most sublime task that man can undertake, and as the result of which are perceptible is a well-ordered, blessed, and beautiful life. Now, there's a lot there.
That's a lot.
What are your thoughts?
Well,
that's a big one.
Let me turn it back on you for a second, if you don't mind. Like, obviously, that's something that really speaks to you.
Yeah.
And
it does.
Tell me what really jumps out for you.
You know, when I think of perfecting of oneself, I don't look at it as being perfect, because that's where we get in trouble. I think, if I'm perfect or I got to be perfect, I'm never going to do that. So then I'm constantly disappointed. That's not a good way to live, obviously. When I think perfecting oneself is like, I go back to who am I? Like the big question, like, who am I? And I'm really a simple guy, so simplicity really hits me hard. So I look at it as I think of the characteristics of a baby learning to walk. They've got resilience. They're brave. They're strong. They're believing. They're forgiving. I mean, the list goes on, right? And I go, that's me. That's who I am. And I think when the perfecting of oneself is when I can get in line back to the truth of who I am. That's where my head goes. And I know that might not make a lot of sense to someone listening to this, but I think you're getting it. Like, who am I?
Yeah.
I'm love, I'm light, I'm energy, I'm brave, I'm tenacious, I'm strong, I'm forgiving, I'm compassionate, I'm sympathetic. I'm love, light, and energy. That's me. And when I can remind myself, Todd, that's who you really are. And then do my actions line up with that? If so, I look at that. That's when I'm being my best self.
That's powerful, Todd. Thank you for sharing that.
You bet. Thanks for asking the question.
It's got the truth bumps.
Yeah. Thank you.
I was thinking that when you have an experience like addiction, for example, or any other calamity that happens in your life, and maybe it's not addiction, maybe it's even, it doesn't have to be something bad. It could be marriage, having kids, whatever. But especially when you have something cataclysmic happens in your life, a death in the family, or you're going through addiction, or you're going through, or a family member. And all the stuff is stripped away and you find yourself just like on your knees.
Yeah.
And I think it's that invitation to see, it strips away all the layers and all the crap. So you really get that clear, like, okay, with all this stripped away, like, who are you now? Like, what is really important to you?
Yeah.
And like your list of love and compassion and sympathy, like, everything aside, like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I love Leonard Cohen I have such a bromance with Leonard Cohen, He's such an amazing singer, songwriter. His lyrics are just, the stuff he throws in is garbage. What most people would, they're going to like create a career on that.
Yeah. Right.
In his song Anthem, he says something that I reference this all the time because it's so true. He says, ring the bells that still can ring. Forget the perfect offering. There is a crack in everything. And that's how the light gets in.
Ooh.
Even the rhyme is broken there, It's like, hey, do your best. Ring the bells that still can ring, right? Forget the perfect offering. We are going to be imperfect people. That's the point, right? there's a crack in everything is broken because everything is fallible. And guess what? That's how we become illuminated, in the sense that that's how spirit comes in. That's what he's saying there, is we're not perfect despite our imperfections, but precisely because of them. And it's those things like,
That's
whether
powerful.
that's addiction, or whether that's having a difficult marriage or a failed business or whatever.
Yeah.
When you understand all the ways that you are imperfect, those are fierce anchors to presence, because you can't be anything but right here, right now with this thing. And that's what those strong teachers are inviting us to experience, right? And so with that, I love your story, Todd, about, where you've come and how your, your experience with addiction, your experience with the tumultuous things that happened early in your life that set you up as a pillar and a foundation and a direction setter for so many people in this world. Something that you start to see that, okay, everything's broken. And in that same light, everyone's also perfect. Everybody is the light.
Yeah.
And going back to what you said about when we truly understand ourselves as compassion, and we start to see everything else as the same thing, like, dude, like, I see that within you. Even if you can't see that within yourself, I see that within you. And I want us to groove on that commonality, right?
Wow.
I want to remind you of that same fundamental goodness that already exists within you.
Yeah.
And people listen to podcasts, people, having a one-on-one with you, or, family members, just to be reminded of their own innate perfection despite their brokenness.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what we do.
Yeah. I had a client this morning here before you got here, and who it was my first session with her. And I have all my clients on the very first session read this quote I have up on the wall. I want you to read it out loud if you don't mind. And I want to just tell me what your first reaction is when you read it.
It's perfect, man. It brings tears to my eyes. The most delightful surprise in life is to suddenly recognize there is nothing wrong with you.
Yeah. And it kind of goes with you said, when there's a crack, that's where the light comes in. I think Rumi said that's, when we have a wound, that's where the light comes in to heal us.
Yeah.
It opens it up to be healed.
Right.
Right.
And we can hold on to those broken things and actually identify wrongly as those, and kind of hold on to those forever and ever.
Yeah.
And yet when we understand, like, yeah, man, I was blessed with a failed business. In fact, I had one of my teachers who was a really profound influence on me. After I had opened a couple yoga studios, and I was in the throes of running this small business, and I invited my teacher, internationally acclaimed teacher, to come and teach some workshops at my studio. And he had 5 sold out workshops, and each workshop had like 75 people in it. It looked on the outside like this outrageously successful situation, and yet what he didn't know was, like, the whole business was going in, like, down the toilet. It was doing that death swirl in the toilet. Right. And after his workshops were all done, and a couple of us were all getting together at a dinner, we're going to kind of wrap it up with this dinner. And I had to come late to the dinner because I had to have a meeting with my entire staff to let them know that we were closing our doors. And it was such a paradox, right? And so I show up late.
Yeah, right.
Late to the dinner, and I'm like, "Hey, man, sorry I'm late. I just had to have a really tough meeting with my staff and let them know that we're closing our doors." He didn't miss a beat. He leans into me and he's like, "Congratulations." Wow. That's all he said. Like, congratulations. It's like, I don't know. And it took me years to kind of unpack that. Like, and that's kind of a glib statement, I'm kind of in the throes of it here at the moment.
Yeah.
But I think he could see that the winning the struggle beyond this individual battle.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
To see that, dude, probably in the long term, like this brick and mortar is just going to be like a albatross around your shoulders.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like there's something bigger here
Right.
for you. And sometimes it takes teachers to be able to point that out for us. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So,
and look at the gift they're pointing to versus focusing on the finger.
There's nothing
right?
wrong
like you said
here.
Earlier.
Exactly. Exactly. Like, don't look at the finger, dude. Like, what's the finger pointing?
What's it actually pointing at, though?
Yeah. That's, I think, what I'm, I'm sure you do so largely, Todd, with the podcast, with your clients too, is what I'm imagining is like, hey, let's see what the pointers are and let's see what are they pointing to.
Mm-hmm.
And really, I think that's what the practice, whether it's yoga, meditation, the practice of moving through an addiction, the practice of running a business, the practice of, raising kids, whatever that is, what is that practice pointing to? And going back to the ultimate simplicity of like love and who we are and how we're making our way through this broken world as perfect individuals.
Yeah. Yeah. It's good stuff. Good vibe in here right now.
Deep,
I love it.
man.
Yeah,
It's
I love it. Good vibe. So if there's people out there listening to this right now and they want to know more about what you do and maybe even get one of your books or just, maybe get involved with your classes and things like that, what is the best way for someone to do that?
Thanks, Todd. I appreciate that. So I have a website, which is scottmooreyoga.com.
Okay.
2 O's in the more. scottmooreyoga.com. You can see me on Instagram or Facebook, scottmooreyoga.com.
Yeah. It's a great website, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It's really well done.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
My passion is helping people find depth, connection, purpose, and joy through different practices.
Yeah.
I do online classes and in-person classes.
Okay.
I have courses and workshops. My specialty is Yoga Nidra, which is this fascinating form of guided meditation that leverages systematized relaxation to get into the Nidra state, which is that in-between waking dreaming state, to experience that part of that oneness part of yourself.
Okay.
So it's extremely
Awesome.
nourishing.
Yeah.
And I teach other teachers how to do that.
Oh, wow.
And I have an online teacher training program there, but I'm also traveling. This year I'm going to be in Hong Kong and Switzerland and around the United States doing some of that. So that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's amazing.
I keep up a blog because, I like to write, but really it's just the writing is just the mechanism for storytelling. And I think storytelling is just connecting people to people, right?
Absolutely.
And they're fun, right?
Yeah, sure.
And so I have a blog on my website there.
Okay.
I have some downloadable recordings. I'm also on what's called Insight Timer, which is app that has thousands of meditations and stuff like that.
Beautiful.
Host for yoga retreats. This year I'm going to be in the French Riviera. I had the great pleasure of living there for the past 3 of the last 5 years. So I'm bringing people back so we can show them the seaside and practice presence in this beautiful part of the world. So,
wow.
some stuff. The
That's
books,
amazing.
I have one on Yoga Nidra, practical Yoga Nidra, understanding that practice in a really basic realm.
Okay.
The other one is called the 5-Minute Manifesting Journal. And it's a workbook of putting more than trying to sort of mentally conjure the things you want in your life. It's really more about becoming the kind of person who fill in the blank. And you're doing that through the art of presence of it's a series of prompts where you kind of write your own story. You write into what's true and real for you. And then I have a book of Yoga Nidra scripts for people who are interested in doing that.
Oh, okay.
And I'm working on a book called Bless This Ride, which is a book
I like that title.
about how stories of my car getting jacked, for example, has brought me further down the path of life. There's one chapter called Grand Theft Auto, a study in mindfulness. So stuff like that. Just vignettes and stories about things. And so
very cool.
That's what I'm doing.
Very cool.
Yeah.
No, you're doing amazing things. I love that you got so much experience. You got over, what is it, like 25,000 hours in what you do. Beautiful. I really admire the passion you have and how you do it, because you really want to make a difference in people's lives. And And I love that. I love to be able to hear it from you personally. I have one more question for you. If there's someone listening to you right now and they're in a really tough spot and they're in a dark place and they're listening to you and they're like, man, I'm struggling. What would you tell that person right now?
It's going to be okay. Take a deep breath. Somehow we've already made it. We've already won. And this life is figuring out how it happened.
Do you remember what you texted me last Friday?
Take a deep breath.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of an inside thing. I had a really rough Friday morning last week and we had to postpone, and you sent that over, and I want you to know that was really, that simple little phrase, really, I took it to heart, and I want to thank you for that. It really did help.
Thank you, Todd.
So
thanks for doing what you do, man.
You bet, man. And I'm glad to be able to sit with you. This is great.
That's
And you bring a good energy here. And I know the listeners are edified with the things that you've said. And here's to much more success in what you're doing and your travels. I know you're going to make an impact on so many people. So keep up the good work you're doing. And thanks for taking some time to be with me today. I mean, I'm the lucky one.
Well, thank you, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for being on my team. Let me be on your team.
Absolutely. Okay. Well, there you go, folks. Today was a great interview here with Scott Moore. Please reach out to him. I'll put all his links in the show notes so you can get right to his website and to his books and his classes and retreats. And please, if you want to get involved at all, if you've never even done yoga or whatever, give Scott a shot. He's obviously very knowledgeable and his heart's in the right place. So we're really lucky to hear his story today. And again, thanks to my sponsors. Thanks for believing in me. And till next time, everyone.
Thank you.
Namaste.
Namaste.